Good day, and welcome to the UFC New York conference call. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I'd like to turn the conference over to Mr. Dave Schaller. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a historic UFC conference call following today's New York State Assembly passage of legislation to legalize and regulate professional mixed martial arts in the state of New York. We are pleased to be having this call today, joined by our Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Lorenzo Fertitta, our Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Lawrence Epstein, our Senior Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs, Mark Ratner, and lastly, Hofstra University grad, Baldwin, New York native and former UFC middleweight champion, the pride of New York, Chris Weidman. At this time, we'll open it up to the first question.
And thank you. If you would like to ask a question, please signal by pressing *1 on your telephone keypad. If you're using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Again, please press *1 to ask a question. We'll pause for just a moment to allow everyone an opportunity to signal for questions. And we go first to Lance Tugmeyer with Los Angeles Times.
Hi, Lorenzo. Congratulations. I just wanted to ask you, how long will it take for the governor to sign this and for the regulations to be passed, and when do you plan to stage the first UFC event in New York?
Sure. So we're hopeful that the governor, who has in the past been supportive, obviously said he will sign the bill. We're hoping that he will sign the bill in fairly short order here. Once that happens, then the New York State Athletic Commission will have to promulgate rules, adopt rules and regulations, and we are hopeful that we will be holding one, possibly two events before the end of the year here in 2016.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And we go now to Kevin Ioli with Yahoo Sports.
Hi, guys. Congratulations, Lorenzo. My first question is actually for Mark. Mark, if I could ask you, you've been at this for a long time, the guy on the ground, so to speak, and I wonder if you can talk about what you think changed and how you finally were able to get this through this time after so many near misses.
I think it was as much about education and talking to these people over and over again that we finally got to the point where they started realizing that it is a sport and it needs to be regulated. And all our trips up there and these road trips with Lawrence's help and Lorenzo's help and Dana's help and all worked, and certainly bringing the fighters up there was such a big thing. And Chris did a fabulous job the last time we were taking our road trip. So it's just a combination of everything, but it's very exhilarating.
A couple other questions, if I could. For Chris, first of all, when you were listening to that today and you heard them talking about UFC fighters, or not UFC fighters, but MMA fighters, have a higher rate of domestic violence, and talking about the brain trauma, did that concern you? Like, did you leave to go to the gym with the feeling that this may not pass?
I was pretty optimistic throughout the whole thing, and some of the things that they were saying were so ridiculous that I was actually happy and embarrassed for them for even bringing it up. And it's things I've heard people behind closed doors might be saying, but to actually hear them say it live and to the public was actually just kind of, I actually thought it was pretty interesting and probably good for us. I just thought it was embarrassing on their part. So.
And Lorenzo, if you could comment on this, I think it was Representative O'Donnell made the comment that he heard a lobbyist on the phone basically saying, he would pay $50,000 to get a 12-2 nay vote changed to a 12-2 pro vote. Do you have any idea what he was talking about? And the question further about the amount of money, lobbying money you spent, did it surprise you that they brought so much up about that today?
I mean, first of all, that comment by O'Donnell is absolutely ridiculous, and no, that is absolutely, we have no knowledge of anything like that. We invested in the sport, no different than we've done over the last 15, 16 years. It's unfortunately part of the process. You hire lobbyists, you go in, you try to talk about what your position is, and try to educate people. This process took us over 8 years, so it took some time. But finally, we were able to get it done today. I think you asked early on kind of what changed. I mean, the obvious thing what changed was we have a new speaker in Speaker H.E.A.T, who was at least willing, whether or not he supported the bill or not, he was willing to let the democratic process play out. and that was more than can be said for, the prior speaker. So, I mean, I think ultimately that is what changed, and now we're in a situation where, as Chris said, you're able to see with all the commentary that the various members of the assembly were able to come out, basically state their position. Obviously, there was some staunch opponents, but there was also obviously some very strong supporters. I think when you look at the fact that I believe the bill passed 113 to 25, I would say that, if you go back and look at most bills that are voted upon in the state assembly, that would be an absolute landslide. So no different than we thought for the past however many years that the bill had support and would pass if it had the opportunity to hit the floor. Finally did hit the floor, it finally did pass, and now we can, move on from, what has been talked about in the past and focus on trying to put on big events. So,
thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We go now to John Campbell with Gannett.
Hi, guys. Thanks for doing the call. Lorenzo, you had mentioned that you were hoping to have 2 events in New York by the end of the year. I'm assuming one of those in New York City. Can you say where else you're planning on holding an event?
Yeah, I mean, obviously New York City is one, but we're also, we committed that we were going to bring 4 events per year, I think for the first, couple years. So the other event would probably somewhere in upstate New York. Could be anywhere from Buffalo to Syracuse, Rochester, or even maybe Utica. I've actually visited that arena myself. In fact, I think the same architect who designed Madison Square Garden actually designed the small arena in Utica. So we're still working on that now.
And are you in active talks with any of those arenas?
Yeah, actually, the minute that the vote passed, we started. Our team started calling various arenas and looking at what dates are available. Obviously, as I mentioned before, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. Still the governor has to sign the bill. The athletic commission needs to adopt the rules, promulgate regulations. I think there is, about a 180-day period?
120 days.
120 days from when the governor signs the bill before we could actually hold the event. At least that's my hold an event. That's my understanding of it. So, we're hopeful that we'll be able to get at least 2 in by the end of the year.
Are you hoping to get one in as soon as that 120-day period runs up?
It's going to have to work, with the schedule of the arenas. Obviously, when you talk about the 2 arenas in New York between Madison Square Garden and Barclays, are very, very busy arenas. So we're going to have to, hopefully, the stars will align and we'll be able to get that done. And then, once again, we're out already talking to arenas in Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, Utica, and we're confident that we'll be able to get dates that work, but just a few things still need to play out before we're actually able to do it.
Thank you very much.
Go now to Brett Callahan with WPIX New York.
This question is for Chris. Chris, tell me what the decision means for the fighters in New York, the local Long Island fighters, and building the sport among the community there.
Man, it's just speaking for myself. I've been fighting now for 7 years, and I've been missing out on opportunities to fight in front of my family, friends, and fans here in New York. And it's so every year, you're just hopeful, and then just kept falling through. So for it to finally happen is just a dream come true for me. It's a dream come true for all these New York fans. Now I don't have to worry about buying these tickets to Las Vegas to watch the New York fighters get in there, and or taking long car rides to New Jersey. So it's great for everybody, and you also, it makes me reflect on a guy like Matt Serra. Just got done working out now, and he's had such a long career and one of the best fighters that's been in the sport, and he's retired now, so he missed out on his whole career fighting in New York, and so I reflect on that and feel bad for him, but now he's able to coach, so he's going to enjoy that. But yeah, no, it's a great day. It's just very, very exciting for it to finally happen.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And we go now to Mark LaMonica with Newsday.
Question for Mark Ratner. Mark, you've been at this in New York for a very long time. Can you just sort of talk about the mood right now and the feelings you've got now that you finally crossed this hurdle?
Well, exhilaration, but I was comparing it to like almost an 8-year pregnancy. Finally, the baby was born tonight. So that's the only way I can look at it. I look back and it was frustrating, but today I'm thrilled, and I don't care what happened in the past. We go forward now, and
that's the great news.
All right, thank you.
And we go now to Eben Navi-Williams with Bloomberg News.
Hey, guys. I know you've been pretty vocal about the economic impact that this will bring to New York. I'm curious about what the economic impact will be for you guys from a revenue standpoint, being able to operate in the state moving forward.
For us, I mean, obviously, I mean, we think that, you know, first of all, New York is the biggest market for us in the United States already from a pay-per-view standpoint. It's the most important media market in the United States, perhaps in the world. We have high expectations when we, you know, do events at Madison Square Garden or in the arenas in upstate New York. We're looking to literally break the gate records at each arena that we go to, and that includes Madison Square Garden when we eventually get there, hopefully by the fourth quarter of this year. So, you know, we think it's going to be great. We think it's going to be great for the fighters, great for the industry. And once again, I mean, it's not just the UFC, but I think you're going to see other promoters such as Bellator, which is owned by Viacom. They will be doing events. You also have mid-sized promoters as well as smaller promoters, and I think you'll see a lot of economic activity that will happen within the state with a big contribution to the state. We think it's going to be a big deal.
What would you say if there's an estimate what your gross receipts would be for a UFC event at the Garden?
You know what? We're still working on that. And once again, I mean, I got to go back. I think we got to go back and see what the record gate was. I think so far the record gate was Holyfield versus Lennox Lewis, and I don't know exactly what that number is offhand, but we would be trying to potentially beat that number.
Thanks, guys.
We'll go now to Damon Martin with Fox Sports.
Hey, guys. First question for you, Lorenzo. In terms of this first show, I mean, this has been so long talked about, this first show at Madison Square Garden. Obviously, we're way too far ahead to talk about matchmaking, but can you kind of give us a sense of how big this card would be? I mean, are we talking like UFC 200 level of promotion behind this first card in New York?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an epic moment for the sport and for our company. And, you know, obviously right now all of our focus is on trying to put together the matches for UFC 200. But, you know, when we go to New York and we eventually debut at Madison Square Garden, me and Dana and the rest of the team are going to be very focused on delivering for the fans. And we're going to put together the best available matches that we can. And you'll have the biggest names that we can possibly put on, the biggest names that are available at the time. So believe me, we want to knock it out of the park, and we want to deliver to New York in a big way.
And a question kind of for Lorenzo and Mark. You know, we heard some pretty crazy arguments today from O'Donnell and, you know, some of the things comparing it to a public hanging. I mean, there were some pretty crazy things out there. I mean, are these things you guys have heard while stumping in New York these last few years? Because for a lot of us, it's the first time we've heard these really outlandish statements.
Yes, the answer is yes. I mean, we have been, Mark and his team, as well as myself, and even some of our fighters like Chris Weidman, have been, you know, up and down the halls of the assembly talking and trying to educate different legislators. And many of the things that you heard today in the public forum were actually told to us, you know, in their offices or in meetings. In fact, I was actually kind of surprised that some of the things were actually said publicly today. It's kind of shocking, you know, the way that, you know, the opponents really tried to paint not only the sport, but paint our athletes. And, you know, yeah, I was actually surprised that a lot of the opponents that spoke actually said some of those things.
And one quick question for Chris Weidman. Chris, obviously I know you're excited. Your focus is UFC 199 and Luke Rockhold, but I'm curious, I mean, how much more anticipation do you have for that fight now, considering a win, you know, you get the title back, you know, you may be headlining or obviously be a part of that New York event. I mean, is it even bigger now, this fight coming up in June?
Yes, you know, the vision gets even stronger now. You know, now I had to get my belt back, but now just the fact that I'm going to be able to defend my belt in Madison Square Garden in front of old New York is just crazy to even start to think about. So it definitely gets me more excited.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
We go now to Frank McCaffrey with Fox 40 Binghamton. Sir, your line is open. Again, that was Frank McCaffrey. Please check your mute function. With no response, we'll go to Chamatkar Sandhu with MMA Junkie USA Today.
Question for Chris. There is a video going around on social media between yourself, Aljamain Sterling, Matt Serra, and the gang all celebrating. When the news first broke in the gym, can you just describe the scene and how you guys are all feeling?
We were pretty much, obviously it's just shocked. We were anticipating, we were waiting for the decision, then all of a sudden someone ran over with their phone as we're doing jiu-jitsu on the mat and said they passed, and we just started going nuts. And then first thing we had to do, of course, is make a nice social media video so everybody could kind of see what we're going through. But, yeah, everyone is so excited, whether they're guys who are just, doing MMA for fun or for exercise, or if you're competing on amateur or pro level, everyone is just beyond excited. I mean, living in New York, having to explain to people who aren't educated on the sport why it's illegal is just something that everyone was kind of sick of doing all the time. But now to know that it's a legitimate sport here in New York and there's no more explaining to do, it's just a huge relief for everybody.
Thank you. And just one for either Lorenzo or Lawrence. We haven't heard from Dana White yet. Is there a comment? Is there anything that you guys can say on behalf of the UFC president?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dana is as happy as everybody. I think he just tweeted out, his message was, he used to tweet out a map of the United States with all of the states that regulate mixed martial arts red, and then there was the one lone standout with New York being white. And obviously now the entire country is painted, and he tweeted that out. So obviously he's very happy. He's actually on spring vacation with his family, so he's got a few days off, which he well deserves.
Thank you very much, guys.
We go now to Jimmy Vielkind with Politico.
Hi, guys. Lorenzo, can you talk about what the Athletic Commission needs to do? And given the fact that you had an 8-year saga to get through the state legislature, how do you think that this body is going to treat you, and are there any potential hiccups there?
Well, I mean, certainly there's going to be a process. They're going to have to adopt rules. I think the good thing is that there already exists the unified rules of mixed martial arts. There's mixed martial arts have been going on now and regulated in 49 states in the United States. My understanding is they are a member of the Association of Boxing Commissions, which is kind of the national group that gets together where all the commissions, adopt standards and rules, and the unified rules of mixed martial arts have been adopted by the Association of Boxing Commissions. So once again, the model I think is already kind of in place. Ultimately, we're hopeful that they will just adopt what is already working and what already has a history. But we're happy to work with them, answer any questions, participate in public hearings, whatever need be. We'll be there to assist them and give them input wherever they need it.
And I'll be talking to them this week.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And just as a follow-up, here in the Empire State, we tend to do government with kind of extra special characteristics. And can you talk to me about what it's been like? What's been your experience with New York State government? What do you think now that it's hopefully over?
Yeah, this is Lawrence. We've actually been to almost every state legislature between California and Maine. We've been to legislatures all throughout the world. New York, though it took 8.5 years, took a lot longer than any of those other jurisdictions. Really, things were pretty much the same. As Mark indicated previously, this is really an education process, and it took us a little bit longer to get things done, but that was essentially what we have to do in every jurisdiction, and it might have taken, as I said, a bit longer, but ultimately the facts and the rational arguments were the winners at the end of the day. I mean, clearly, one of the things that was slightly different about New York is that there was a very, very vocal minority, and I think you saw some of that vocal minority display today during the hearing. I don't think we've had that type of vocal minority in any other jurisdiction. But other than that, it was pretty much the same as what we've experienced around the world. We had the facts, and all the strong arguments on our side. And though it took a little bit longer, we got to the same place, which is the regulation of mixed martial arts.
Thanks.
We go now to Mark Ramondi with MMAfighting.com.
Hey guys, congratulations on the bill passed today. First question just for Chris. I know you've worked so hard. One, were you ever?
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. You broke up there. I don't know if anybody.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Broke up. That's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. If you could repeat.
Yeah, I was saying. I know this has been. You've worked really hard in Albany to lobby for this happening. Were you ever discouraged? Do you ever feel like it may never happen? And how fulfilled are you now that it is happening?
Yeah, without a doubt, I was discouraged. There was a couple points over the years where I was like, people would start getting excited, and I was like, it's not happening. And I was kind of negative about it. And then I flip-flopped to the other side a few times where I was very optimistic about it and got slam dunked. So, for it to finally happen, I was optimistic this year, especially being down in Albany, and then we went to Buffalo, Rochester, and I'm missing one other. Where else did we go? Syracuse. Syracuse, there you go. After going there, it felt like we had overwhelming amount of support, and the people of New York were educated within the politics, and for it to finally happen, it's just an amazing feeling. And like I said before, it's not just the pro fighters or the fans, all the people who are training at MMA gyms, training jiu-jitsu, training wrestling, everybody. Everybody who's in a martial art. Now we have a legitimate sport here. Instead of having to argue with people on whether it's a legitimate sport or not, it's over now. It is a sport. Nobody in New York could say otherwise. So it's a great feeling.
How hard are you going to lobby to get on that first MSG show?
I think everybody knows my expectations, and I think everybody's on the same page. I think everybody wants wants me to be happy. So of course,
I definitely want Chris to be happy.
Yeah. Thank you, Lorenzo.
Thanks, Chris. Just for Lorenzo, I think Dana has said in the past that November was kind of the target month for MSG. Is that still kind of in your sights?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think our sights are the fourth quarter. Like I said, I think there's 120 days after the governor eventually signs the bill. So kind of doing the math, that would put us in November, December, just by the time we could potentially get dates, and it's going to look, this is going to be, I think we had a question earlier about how big is the event going to be. It's going to be massive. And when you do massive events, it takes time, it takes runway. It's going to be a tremendous amount of promotion, a ton of marketing assets. We're going to have to book, the fights that make sense for there, which will include Chris Weidman. And, it's going to be big, but I think fourth quarter is a good target for us. Realistic target.
If you guys do two shows before the end of the year, MSG would be the first one. You'd imagine that would be the first one.
Not so sure about that.
Okay.
We're hoping that it will be one, but I don't know that it will be the first one.
Gotcha. There's been talk that Ronda Rousey could return in that general vicinity, November, December. Could she be someone that you guys might want to headline a Madison Square Garden card?
Of course. I mean, I haven't had any conversation with Ronda about it, but like I said before, I mean, when we go to New York, we want to come with a big event, and obviously anytime Ronda Rousey fights, that is clearly a big event. So, that's to be seen.
Thanks. And just for Mr. Ratner, Mark, I think everyone said you've been on the front lines in this fight. Were you ever discouraged? Did you ever feel like it wasn't going to happen? And now that it is happening, how do you feel about it?
It was always a question of when, never if for me. I really felt strongly that it would happen. It took longer than we wanted, but as I said earlier, it's well worth it. Done, and just look forward to our first shows, and I'm excited.
Great. Thank you, guys, and congrats again.
And as a reminder, it is star one at this time if you would like to ask a question. And we'll go now to Dave Siebert with Post Media.
Hi, you guys. Thanks for the time. First one for Lawrence or Lorenzo, and then follow up for Mark or Lorenzo. Lawrence or Lorenzo, could you estimate how much the company spent on lobbying over the years to help this happen?
Yeah, I don't have the exact number in front of me. I think that the UFC has reported, we've reported in the past, it was in excess of, I think, $2 million that we spent over the last 8.5 years. We started this campaign in December of 2007, just to put that in perspective. So, as I said, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it was slightly in excess of $2 million over that 8.5-year period.
Okay, thanks. And then I guess for Lorenzo and Mark, do you guys have any specific memories of 1997? You know, during your time in Nevada, any specific memories of just all the commotion that went down when MMA was originally legalized in New York, and then New York Times happened, the revote happened, and eventually it was banned. Do you guys have any memories, you know, in your duties with Nevada at the time?
You know, I'll speak for myself. At that time, I was very, very new to the commission, and really, Mark, you can speak to it, but from my perspective, there was really no chatter about it. Really, it wasn't really a big issue at the time. We were more focused on what was going on in Nevada from a boxing standpoint. At that time, there were some massive events in Nevada between Mike Tyson and Oscar De La Hoya, and a number of big events. But Mark was actually the executive director, so I'm sure he was fairly close, a lot closer to it than the commissioners were.
No, this is Mark speaking. At that time, the advertising was no holds barred, no rules, anything goes. And I publicly said, you can never have a sport with no rules. And I had to come out against it because of that. But once the unified rules came into play, which was late 2000, early 2001, then the state of Nevada was able to approve the sport. But that was a very, very big meeting in Newark, and that's where we formulated the unified rules.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks very much, you guys.
And we go now to Amy Dardashian with AXS TV.
Amy, legal analyst for Inside MMA. Congratulations on the victory. I have a few questions, if you'd be so gracious. First, Chris and Lorenzo, any celebrations, formal or informal, planned here in New York in the coming days?
We don't have any celebrations here at the UFC. I think our focus is, once again, just working with the state athletic commissions, getting the rules done, and then ultimately our celebration will be when we finally hold our first event there in the fall. I'm sure Chris might go out tonight and celebrate. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we heard the news, we all yelled it as loud as we could too. We actually all fainted, so we're just trying to get ourselves together now. Maybe we'll go out tonight. Who knows? But it's definitely a time to celebrate, and even more 120 days from now when we actually are fighting here. So can't wait.
Okay, please let us know where you'll be, Chris.
Okay.
Lots of stereotypes and generalizations brought up today. You responded to the allegations that the sport promotes domestic violence. There were also some homophobic gay porn remarks made, and it was suggested by Assemblywoman Glick that a certain type of person supports the sport. The inference was that they are violent and Donald Trump supporters. How do you respond to those stereotypes of the fans and your sport?
You know, just like Lorenzo was saying before, a lot of this stuff, you know, you might have heard, you know, when you went into their offices and you'd be shocked then, but for them to actually be saying it on a public forum was very surprising, and I was actually embarrassed for them, and I think it just kind of made them kind of look just ignorant with their comments, and they were reaching as far as they possibly can to stop it from happening for whatever reasons, and they were willing to make themselves, you know, kind of look bad and while they were doing it. So I was just surprised, and you know, so is the domestic abuse and all these different things. I mean, there's bad apples in every type of job there is, whether it goes from sports or you know, just normal day-to-day jobs. So for them to try to, you know, point out domestic violence within a sport and it's worse than the other sport, I think that's kind of a joke. I don't think there's any truth behind that.
Lorenzo, similarly, there were many politicians today who expressed concern over long-term traumatic brain injuries arising out of the sport. The bill obviously funds future studies. Of course, we know fighters rest between bouts, but is there anything concrete the UFC plans to do, such as introducing protective gear or additional rules to protect fighters from long-term brain damage?
Yeah, this is Lawrence Epstein. I'll go ahead and answer that one. The answer is we're already doing a bunch of concrete things, namely the most significant being the participation that we've had for the last 5 years and the commitment that we've made for the next 5 years to the Cleveland Clinic study that we are doing here in Las Vegas and also in conjunction with Cleveland Clinic facilities around the United States. The goal of that study is twofold. Number one, to determine whether or not certain athletes, based upon their physiology, are predisposed towards brain injury, and two, to try to determine whether or not there are early indications of brain injury that can be seen on images that can be seen before an individual starts manifesting symptoms. If an individual does start showing those small changes in the brain, they would be unable to participate in either boxing or mixed martial arts events. As I said, we funded this study for the last 5 years along with Bellator, Viacom, and several of the boxing promoters, including Premier Boxing Championships. We've just committed and recently announced a 5-year, $1 million commitment to continue that study. So we're very hopeful that during the next 5 years, we're going to have a fairly definitive test that will be similar to what we have right now for eye exams. So every mixed martial artist or boxer, before he or she is licensed, have to pass an eye exam. If, for example, that test shows a detached retina or some eye injury, the athlete is not permitted to be licensed and therefore cannot fight. We want to get in that same situation for the brain, and we're very hopeful that we'll accomplish that in the next 5 years. So that's what we're doing to make sure that the sport is safe as it possibly can be.
Thank you. Two quick questions. Lorenzo, I know there were some insinuations about the first fight. You didn't specifically say it would be at Madison Square Garden, but there were some rumblings that MSG has been reserved for November. Can you confirm whether it's been reserved for November? Also, are you looking at the Barclays as a possible first fight venue? And can you confirm that Chris will be on that first card, given that he has lobbied so hard for your organization? I know there were some jokes before, but can you concretely?
We are new best friends. Good job. Keep it up.
Hey, I thought we were best friends before. What are you talking about?
No, I was talking about her.
Oh, gotcha.
He's got a new allegiance.
There you go.
Okay.
So getting back to that, I mean, our first major event we expect to be at Madison Square Garden. I will tell you one thing. They have been incredible supporters of the MMA bill from day one. You know, we talked about starting this thing 8.5 years ago, and they have been right by our side all the way through. I will say, and as well, the Barclays and the ownership in that group and the leadership in that group have also been big supporters. We anticipate that the first major event will be at Madison Square Garden. We haven't signed any contracts. We don't have any exact dates held. We are talking to them about some potential weekends, but once again, it's kind of hard to do until we know exactly, as far as signing a contract and putting up non-refundable deposits. Until we know exactly when we can do that, it's going to be difficult to actually do that. With that said, we're also, as I mentioned, looking at some other markets. I mean, we went up there. We met with city leaders, arena owners, and arena management in all the major upstate cities, and told them we want to bring events up there, create economic impact, and we're going to do exactly what we said we were going to do, which is bring events up there. So that could be a possibility, too, before the end of the year.
And as for Chris being on that card, is that still up for discussion? How heavy with New York fighters will that card be, that first card?
Look, I think we're going to do what makes sense. I mean, I think the overall number one goal is to bring the biggest, most relevant fights that are available at that time. And then, obviously, if we can accomplish that with having as many New York fighters on the card, we absolutely will do that. I mean, the great thing is we got a ton of great fighters from New York, obviously Long Island, some other parts of New York, and we're going to do our best to put as many of those fighters on the cards as possible because, obviously we want to play to the hometown crowd. We want them to have the experience of, for the first time, finally fighting at home, which I think is going to be a big deal.
And lastly, for Mark or Lawrence, whoever wants to take this, since you guys were involved in the fight here in New York on the front line, so to speak, as Mark said. Mark, can you talk about the influence of the Culinary Union? There were some mentions today by some opponents who didn't feel it was that influential. I know Deborah Glick had said she hadn't heard of their influence in the past. In your experience, were they a power player in keeping MMA illegal all these years?
My feelings are that I look to the future, not to the past, and whatever they did, and it's a new day, and just thrilled that we're going to have fights in New York.
Hey, and this is Lawrence. The only thing I didn't want to clear up from that hearing, though, is some of these legislators were saying they had never been contacted. There's an irrefutable fact that is as follows. The only entity other than us that ever formally registered to lobby on this issue was Culinary Local 226 from Las Vegas. They hired a firm in Albany called Metropolitan Public Strategies, I believe, and they hired a gentleman by the name of Neil Quatra. They're on record. It's been filed. So whether they contacted certain legislators, I don't know. But I can tell you, if you check the records, in the last several years, they have formally registered to lobby on this issue, and they are the only other entity that did besides us. That's an irrefutable fact.
Since it's presumed that was a direct attack on you, on this day where you have been victorious, what's your message to them?
The message is exactly what Mark said, which is we're looking towards the future. And as I said, I just wanted to clear that up because there was some discussion out there among the legislators. They didn't know what we were talking about, and that's obviously silly based upon the facts that I just laid out.
And with that, we'll go to Kevin Ioli with Yahoo Sports.
I just wanted to ask two more follow-up questions. Mark, you alluded to your interview on the Larry King Show a little bit ago, but I wonder, were there times where you felt like that interview was going to come back to haunt you and that they may use, your words against you during this whole process?
No, because what I said then was it wasn't a sport then, because they kept on saying no holds barred, no rules, anything goes, and I certainly was able to with our commission. Once they put the unified rules in, it was very simple to get the sport approved. Then it was a sport. So I never worried about that. Certainly, I've seen the video of it. I had dark hair way back then, so I look better then.
Okay, great, thanks. And Chris, I just wanted to get your reaction to this because I think those of us who have covered fighting for a long time have a good feel for this, but I wanted to get it from a fighter standpoint. A lot of the legislators today brought up concerns about traumatic brain injury, and they mentioned the NFL and a lot of the stuff that goes on. From a fighter standpoint, how would you argue that they're not correct, and that in fact this is I know it's a contact sport, but a safer sport, and that the risk isn't inordinate? What would your argument be if you could address them now on that topic that they brought up so much today?
Well, it's a sport where, I'm doing it by choice. Like one of the legislators brought up, and it's like any other physical sport out there, like football, boxing, judo. There's going to be there's chances that you're going to get hurt, and it's the risk that we take to do what we love. And so when it's properly regulated, like it is now finally going to be, it's a very, very safe sport, safer than a lot of other sports that are out there. One thing that, was kind of said today and people are starting to get is that MMA was legal in New York for amateur level, which is pretty much the same rules as pro, and these guys were getting hurt with no insurance. There was no blood testing. There was no drug testing. It was very unsafe what was going on in New York. This is what just happened today is a way to make this sport safer.
Thank you, Chris. And finally, if I can ask Lawrence, did you, as part of going in this process, did you attend any of the so-called underground events, the amateur events that were going on? And did you witness things like, no ambulance there? Or did you see any of the atrocities that a lot of us have talked about over the years? Did you see that firsthand for yourself?
No, I did not, no.
Thank you.
We'll take one final question from Jim Genia with CageInsider.com.
Hi, this is a question for Lorenzo and Mark and Lawrence. You're now on the other side of a years-long battle. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, this is Lawrence. I don't think so. I think we really handled ourselves in the same way we handle ourselves in every jurisdiction, not just in the United States, around the world. We present the facts. I know we are respectful to everybody we meet with, even those that maybe don't agree with our position. And we used, frankly, to get this thing done, our best advocates, which are guys like Chris Weidman and other athletes. We never could have got this done without the great athletes that went up and met with legislators and talked to them about their experiences. You know, we can go up there as executives of the company and talk all day long, but what really carried the day were people like Chris and others who spent their time to educate legislators, not just on what the sport is, but who are the participants in the sport, and that speaks louder than any deck you can present or any studies you can provide.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was... Go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead. Oh,
No.
Jim, I just want to say thank you to you, too, because you were a very big advocate for us, and I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks. The pleasure was mine.
Here, too, Jim, you obviously have always been a big advocate, but I think as Lauren said, I mean, we took the approach. I mean, we weren't combative. We always did handle ourselves in a professional manner. We were patient throughout the process when maybe at times we shouldn't have been patient, but we just continued to stay on message, stay on target. As Lawrence mentioned, our athletes came up and I think made a world of difference, which let me tell you what, it's not easy. They all have things they have to do. They have families. They took time out, came up to Albany, educated different legislators, and I'm sure at times as they were being bombarded and blasted with all kind of crazy comments and things that our opponents were saying to them, you know, they obviously stayed calm and stayed professional, and that's really been the way that I think that we handled ourselves in this thing and wouldn't change it at all.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and this concludes our conference. We thank you for your participation.
Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Take care.